I'm Mike.
And I'm Blake.
And this is Prove It, where we will be talking about our experiences.
And the validity of those experiences will be tested.
And today we're going to start off with a little bit about the inspiration of this podcast. I moved to Dallas about 7 years ago.
Okay.
And a lot of things did that, moving from Oklahoma to here. But basically, I started off with little of nothing. I had 3 houses in Oklahoma and a couple of rent houses in the house that I lived in. And I sold all 3 houses. I sold everything that I owned, basically. And I moved here in just what I could carry in my truck with my dog.
Pretty much just started anew, like, forget all this. I'm going to do something different with my life. Yeah,
I kind of looked at what I was doing and where I was going, and I was kind of in the rat race, and I was doing the thing that everybody else has done their whole life, the American dream. You know, you work hard and you buy a new car, and then you get a better car, and you buy a house, and you get a better house, and et cetera, et cetera. And I went through a divorce, and then I kind of stepped back and looked at it, and I looked at my house, and I was like, I don't use half the crap in here. I don't use half the rooms in here. This is ridiculous. And I wanted just a complete change. I sold my financial advising practice and packed up, sold everything, and moved to Dallas, which we can talk about that on another story about why I moved to Dallas. But moved to Dallas and just what I could carry in my pickup, and I basically became a minimalist. And when I did, I started working for a mattress store, and I was just doing that on the side because I was starting my master's degree in business. And the company that I worked for had delivered a mattress to this lady, and somehow she got my phone number, and she called me one day and she said, "Hey, are you the guy that delivered my mattress?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Maybe I did." I actually wasn't the one that delivered her mattress, but she asked, "Do you do any kind of handyman work?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And at the time I needed money because I'd kind of cashed out everything. When I sold my houses, I didn't make any money, which hindsight, if I'd have kept them for another 5 years, I could have made a boatload of money because the real estate market. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, it's turning back now, which we'll talk about that because you've got something to say about the real estate market now.
That's for another time right now, man.
Yeah. But anyway, so I was doing this little side work for this new mattress company as a startup. And she called me and I said, "Well, I don't think it was me that delivered your mattress, but I do the handyman work and I'd be happy to do it because, I needed the money." So she's this 84-year-old lady. Her name is Lydia Smith, and this podcast is dedicated to her today. Her husband was in the Air Force.
Okay.
And he had passed. And when I showed up, I'd come there about 11 o'clock in the morning, and she'd already have a Bloody Mary ready for herself, and she'd crack a Corona for me. And we would sit down and just start talking and telling stories. And she really liked my stories, and this went on for 2 or 3 months before I ended up finishing my master's and doing some other stuff. But she loved my stories so much that she bought me this journal and said, "Mike, these are great stories. You need to write this stuff down." And I was very appreciative, and I took the journal and I started writing in it, and took some time off from writing, and eventually I realized, since I bought my house and made a big change in my life again, that people don't read as much, but they listen to podcasts.
Oh, well, yeah.
And I felt like I could reach more people through a podcast. So she was really the inspiration of that. This is the journal she bought me. Boom. It's beautiful, leather bound. It's got this dragon and stuff in it, so she can see I've written a lot in it. So instead of writing my story and creating a book out of it, I decided to do a podcast. So Lydia Smith, thank you so much. She is the inspiration of this whole thing. She is feisty. I sent our first podcast that we just sent out last week. I sent it to her, and there's a great story behind that. She thought I was trying to solicit money or something.
For like the campaigns.
She didn't still have my phone number. And when I texted her the podcast, she just texted back, "Stop." and I texted her. I said, "Miss Smith, this is Mike. I used to do some handyman work and blah, blah, blah." And she was just so excited to hear from you. She said she thought about me a bunch, and we reconnected, and hopefully I'm going to have her on here to talk, because she's got some great stories as well. But that was the inspiration for this, and I'm now using the journal to take notes and prepare for our podcast, and we did our edits and stuff in the last one. So it's good, fun times.
And that's actually funny with that, with the podcast being Prove It. That's a prove it moment right there. And you have the proof right in front of us.
I do, yeah. I mean, Lydia has recently turned 91 years old. Wow. And she, obviously from the text message, she is still a firecracker. She is just sweet as pie, but she is definitely a firecracker. And she's going to see this, and hopefully she's flattered. But she is the inspiration for all of this, and we can prove it. I would call her, but it's a little past her bedtime since it's about 11:40 at night. But anyway, I wanted to kind of segue from that into something else. You know, when we very first started, we were talking about being combat veterans, and we'd both been through marriage and divorce and whatnot. So I've got a funny story that I wanted to throw in there to kind of juice up the podcast.
All right, hit me with it, man.
All right, so my ex-wife and I were like best friends. We're in the Oklahoma Army National Guard for about 6 years together before we actually got into a relationship. And we had a little group that we were in a detachment. We're a Det 2 from 700 Support. And we called our little group within the detachment, we call ourselves Det 3. And it was 7 or 8 of us, good buddies. And she was one of our friends. And we were just best friends for like 6 years. But anyway, we were in Stillwater, Oklahoma to see Larry the Cable Guy's comedy show. Because our buddy Robbie, who's also in the National Guard with us, he went to Iraq with me in 2003. We went up there and stayed with him, and we went to Larry the Cable Guy, and the show was walking distance from his house. And we were walking back, and, you know, we'd had a bunch of drinks and stuff, and we were wiry, and this was after we'd come back from Iraq, and this was before Christy and I were married. We were just friends, and we see a group of guys out on their front porch drinking beers.
I feel like every story, every good story involves alcohol, whether it's both parties or just one party.
Well, in addition to that, these guys had typical military haircuts. You know, they had some high and tights and whatever. So we saw them, thought, hey, you know, this is an opportunity to keep the party going. So we sauntered up to them like, hey guys, you partying, whatever, and introduced ourselves, and, you know, saw the haircuts. So we were like, are you guys military or prior service? And they were in the Army. And this one guy, he was kind of shorter, but he was real buff, and he was shirtless. They called him Rock, not The Rock, you know, like the actor and wrestler, just Rock. They called him Rock. And my buddy Robbie was just pretty lit. And I don't remember exactly how it went, but Robbie kind of got mouthy with him and leaned over to me, Christy, and I, and was like, we can whoop their asses. And I think there was 3 or 4 guys there. And I'm a mixed martial artist. I used to compete in karate, and I cornered for a pro fighter, and we can get into that again at a later podcast. So my friends, when they're around me, they tend to get a little bigger. You know, they get 10 foot tall and bulletproof because they've got me there. And I'm just kind of shaking my head like, first of all, he was like, you take those 2 and I can get this guy and Chris can get that one. He was trying to get my soon-to-be ex-wife.
Soon-to-be wife slash
soon-to-be ex-wife and then ex-wife into a fight with grown men, which she is a badass. She has thrown hands with many men. So I'm not saying that she couldn't handle it. But I didn't want to get into that. I didn't want to get her into that. And I was like, let's just get out of here. And we got up and we started to walk off, and Robbie just kept mouthing off, and he kind of stopped and turned back. And the guy, Rock, walked up and just slapped the shit out of Robbie. And I was like, oh fuck, we're gonna do this, man.
And so it sounds like your friend Robbie is well that typical that guy.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Robbie is a super nice guy. He's not a fighter, you know. He's just a pretty average dude, average height, average weight, and he's normally all smiles. And I seriously hope he sees this because we're still in touch, but not close anymore. Um, so I knew that Robbie was about to get the brakes beat off of him.
Like when a man comes up and forcefully open hand slaps you.
Hey,
I mean, you know
he just
he's
made you,
on business, man.
he just made Robbie his bitch. And I was like, oh man, well, this is gonna happen. So I looked at the dude Rock and I said, look, you want to fight somebody? You want to hit somebody? I said, tell you what, hit me. Free shot. I won't do anything. Just hit me. And he did. Actually, no, I take that back. No, I think yeah, he hit me. He socked me pretty good, and I don't remember exactly how everything went because it's been a long time. You know, it's been 20 plus years ago. But he hit me, and I was like, "You good, bro?" And he was like, I guess." And I told Robbie, I was like, "Kick rocks, go home, sober up, sleep it off." And Christy and I actually stayed there. And at some point, I don't remember if it was before that or after that. I think it's when he slapped Robbie. I snatched Rock up and I put him in a rear naked chokehold and I went to the ground and I had him locked from the rear naked. Um, and I was like, hey man, just chill out. I'm not going to choke you out. I'm not going to do anything. And his two friends both hovered over me and they're ready to fuck me up. It was about to be 3-on-1 because Chrissy was there and Robbie just got the shit slapped out of him. And I was like, dude, are we cool? Just chill. And I let him up, and Robbie ended up walking back home, and Chrissy and I stayed there and actually continued to have beers with these guys. And we were sitting there cutting up and going on, having a grand old time. And at some point, I said, you know, Rock, you hit like a bitch.
Oh my god, I knew that was coming.
and he just kind of shook his head and laughed because I mean, what was he gonna do? I already had thrown him in a rear naked chokehold. I could have choked him out. I took his best fucking punch on the chin and just smiled and asked him if he was good. So at that point, he knew that he was betting above his pay grade, and he just kind of laughed it off. And we continued to have some drinks and we made friends of him. We never like exchanged numbers or anything or contacted him, but Christy and I had a few more drinks with him. And then we ended up walking back to Robbie's place and going to sleep and whatever. And that was the end of that. But it was a good story. It was funny. And it was a memorable moment for us. And, us meeting and everything, the way we did and being veterans and everything, it made me think of that. And I wanted to kind of piggyback from the last podcast.
Oh, nice.
I bet you've got a lot of stories like that too.
Oh, like military stories. I got tons of them, but none of them like that involves my ex or like I got stories about my ex. For instance, this one time we had just started dating and everything. I flew to Spain. She was studying abroad in Spain. I was stationed in Italy. But I flew to Spain to see her. Got there, met up with her friend that I met in Paris when we originally met. That's a whole nother story too about how we met because some people are like, oh my God, it's the perfect romantic story. But it was great. But getting back to where I was at, we all decided that we're going to go out. And they knew the area in Madrid and everything. And there was this one place that had a happy hour deal. Now, the euro, it fluctuates about how much a euro and a dollar is. So it was about, I want to say $1.20 to the euro.
Didn't Brexit change the euro now? Was it now?
Oh, it's probably back down to where it was.
But I mean, did Brexit, I don't remember exactly how it went, but they tried to make a unified European.
Well, yeah, and then they made a unified European. So like Italy joined, and then I think Greece joined. And then
do they still call it the euro?
Yeah, it's the euro.
Okay. Sorry, I was tangent there.
Well, the reason that it kind of dropped is because England backed out. The pound, they kept the pound. So,
Oh, I didn't know that. When I got out of being a financial advisor, I just completely, that's when I moved down here 7 years ago. I completely stopped paying attention to the news and everything. But anyway, continue
no,
mission. Charlie
I
Mike.
had to pay attention to it because I was there.
Yeah.
But we were in Spain. They knew all the places and everything. It was about, like I said, $1.20 to €1, which is not too bad, you think. Um, so we're there, and we go to this little bar that has a great happy hour. I had no clue, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Imagine me, white guy, military. I don't know fucking Spanish, bro. I knew no fucking Spanish. I knew how to say hi, how are you? You're cute, and how to order a beer. I mean, I feel like those are the most important things.
I just a quick little segment. So I took 2 semesters of Russian and 3 semesters of French. I read a book on the Arabic alphabet when I went to Iraq the first time. I like linguistics and stuff, but it was so funny. I learned a couple of phrases just for fun. There was a guy in my AIT. For those who don't know, that's Advanced Individual Training in the military. It's what
Yep.
your job training. There was a guy that was German. I think it was AIT. It might have been basic. Anyway, he was German. And I had learned this phrase in Spanish and I was trying to learn it in every language. And he taught it to me. And it's Ich habe einen Schwanz wie ein Pferd. And I know it in Spanish. It's the only other one,
Oh
which is
God.
Yo tengo la verga como caballo, which means I have a dick like a horse.
And
But that was the only German
I
that I knew.
understand both of them because I took 2 years of high school German. So,
Oh, I
oh
was
my
like, oh,
God.
those are going to be my pickup lines, which I've never used them as a pickup line.
But it's
But
like, yo tengo un cerveza,
yeah,
everybody knows that.
Yeah, I want a beer.
I want a beer, something like that.
But
Or,
that's about all you knew back then.
well, hola, I
You're
think you're
beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah. But, traveling through Europe, because I travel alone a lot of times. A lot of people don't like travel alone. I like to because, no fucking itinerary.
Oh,
I'm on
yeah.
my own fucking time.
Oh yeah, we could spend days on
Yes.
talking about traveling alone because I've done that. I'm an only child and I've done a lot of traveling alone.
We'll get into those stories later on.
Absolutely.
But getting back into this, well, I found while traveling alone, like if you tried to learn a couple phrases, there's going to be somebody that knows English there, and they're going to help out with you. They see that you're trying to be part of their culture. But going back, we go to this happy hour. Fantastic happy hour. I didn't understand what was going on. I couldn't read what was going on, but they told me, it's like, hey, basically you order a sandwich and you get this little sandwich about this big. Like think about like a little slider sandwich. And the sandwich is €1. You can buy a beer with that sandwich, like a pint, for another euro. But every time you go up there for a pint, you have to get a sandwich. So €2 for a pint and a sandwich. And that's a pretty damn good deal if you ask me. So
Sweet.
we got there early and we're just drinking and drinking, pounding back. So we got this table full of sandwiches and beer mugs. And the waitress comes around like 2 or 3 times and clears our table, and we go up and get more. And at the end of the night, we have a table full of sandwiches and we just get to go boxes.
Yeah.
And I'm so sloshed. I'm like, I'm not going to fucking eat these. So I start giving mine away to people that are sitting on the street. I hope they were homeless. At least I think they were. I thought I was doing something good. So we keep on drinking, and me and my now ex-wife, my girlfriend at the time, we end up going to see a movie in Spanish.
Didn't you say you didn't speak Spanish then?
I did not know any fucking Spanish, but I sat there and I watched the fucking thing. Don't ask me what movie it was. I know that it was a popular movie. It's something that was in the United States and movie theater at the same time. I can't remember the movie for the.
Was it a U.S. movie that was in Spanish?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So like how we
And no subtitles, I assume.
no hell no.
That's the weirdest thing. You could try to lip read, maybe. Well, you're sloshed. So
I was drunk, bro. I was gone. So movie's over. It's like, okay, we're going to go back to her apartment. She'd been written in Spain for years. She had roommates and everything. I had met her roommates before we went out and all that. Well, so we get on the bus because bus is the cheapest option, like €1 and we can go across the city. So we're sitting there and the bus, traffic and the stops is stop and go. Stop and go.
Oh,
Stop and
no.
go. I look at her, I'm like, I gotta get the fuck off this bus. She's like, you all right? I'm like, no.
About to blow
If
chunks.
I stay out here, I'm going to throw up. I'll pay for a taxi and everything. So we get in a taxi and we're cuddling in the back seat. I pass out. I pass out of the taxi, like straight gone. She wakes me up when we get there, and taxi driver says how much it is. I'm not paying attention. I just throw him a 20-euro bill. It's like, keep it. Other stuff happened that, I'm not going to get too much into that.
Well, I was thinking you probably had whiskey dick.
No, quite the opposite. Have you ever heard that Aerosmith song, Love in an Elevator? Yeah.
I've got a funny elevator story someday.
Yeah. Let's just say that song, I lived in real life.
Well, you mentioned Madrid. My first tour in Iraq, or no. My second tour. Yeah, in '07, my second tour. We got relieved like 3 weeks early. I was in Camp Buca, that place. But anyway, we got relieved 3 weeks early, and our commander basically was hitching rides to get us home. So we caught a C5 from, I believe it was not Taji. Oh, I don't remember the other air base. It wasn't Baghdad International, and it wasn't Taji. It was the other air base that they were flying out of. Well, we caught a C5. C5's a giant, plane. It's got cargo hold and everything for tanks and shit. And then you've got a troop transport up top that's like a regular civilian commercial flight. And we caught the C5 from that camp into Madrid. Now, granted, we still have our weapons, right? So we get to Madrid and we have a little bit of a layover, and we're all sitting in this little room or whatever with machine guns and M16s or M4s and stuff. And they tell us there's a problem with the plane. So we're about to cross the Atlantic Ocean in a ginormous airplane that has an issue right before we're going to leave. Apparently something with the door where they bring in tanks or whatever cargo stuff wasn't closing right, so they were working on it. So they let us go kind of wander around, and we just kind of walked around a little bit from the airport area. We left our weapons with like Battle Buddy or something, and we got to walk around. But we really didn't go anywhere. And other than that, in like Iraq and Mexico, I've been to Venice once with an ex-girlfriend, but I really haven't been abroad that much. So you've got a lot more experience abroad than I do.
Well, like I literally live a 30-minute train ride from Venice. So
really,
I was in Venice monthly.
So I really enjoyed Venice, but as far as like traveling and taking that long plane ride and everything, I felt like for traveling overseas, Venice was kind of a one-time deal for me.
Like the thing is, if you make it part of a big time trip, like if I'm going to go through the Netherlands, I'm going to go to Germany, I'm going to go to Italy, like people don't know they got a Euro pass for the train over there. So I think it's like $200-300, but it's good for a year, and you can travel all over as much as you want.
Yeah, I went with my ex. She's a pediatric nephrologist, and she had a conference there.
Oh.
Yeah, and we stayed like a boat ride away at the other island. I can't remember the name of it.
I know
it starts with an M. But we stayed there, and we had a little Airbnb, and the Airbnb was super cheap. It was great. I want to say this was about 6 years ago, and she would go to do her conference stuff, and I would just tool around Venice. It was like a 20-minute boat ride or whatever, and then she would get out, and we'd go do all the stuff in Venice. And I want to say we were there for like 5 or 6 days, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I really got to learn about the history. We did a paid tour and whatnot, and try to get the most out of the experience. But it was a really cool place, and I learned about all the flooding and how they have the things on the doors.
The levees and everything.
Yeah, it was a cool place. But at the end of the day, I was like, this was fun, but I feel like I did everything that I could do in Venice. Oh, we went to the other place where they do the blown glass.
Oh, yeah. That's in Venice, yeah.
Yeah, so I got some blown glass stuff for my mom and a couple friends or whatever. It was a great trip, but I don't think if I was going to, travel abroad, I don't think I would do Venice a second time. But if you're just, right down the road, basically, it'd be a great place to go and hang out.
So literally, I'd do a day trip out of it. I would leave the earliest train at like 7 in the morning. It was like $10-15 one way.
Yeah.
I mean,
We saw whatever that church is called that took like 200 years to
oh,
build.
St. Mark's Cathedral.
Yeah, we saw that. We saw the other uh, big thing that's right next to it. And then, the big square and everything.
Yeah.
We pretty much seen everything you could see in Venice. That's why I say, like, it was really cool and it was fun. But
So
once,
Venice has some big festivals too. So
oh,
what time of year did you go?
man, I can't even remember. Maybe
What,
October-ish. It wasn't hot. It wasn't cold. It wasn't rainy. It was a nice time of year.
so like in February, you know how New Orleans has Mardi Gras and they got Carnival down in Brazil. Well, they do Carnival in Italy also. And that's where they have all the masks that you see
Yeah.
there with all the bells and everything on them.
I bet it's pretty crazy.
And well, it's crazy that the fountain in the middle, that's just regular water usually, it turns to wine.
What?
Yeah.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah. Well, you got to think Italy is the number one place that wine is made in the world.
Are people allowed to drink out of it?
I still wouldn't drink of it. You don't know whose hands have been in there or what
Well, I mean,
animals.
we're also military, where I've literally seen people get
we do dumb
paid
shit.
$20 to lick a sticky fly trap.
Put your tongue on the freaking pole and everything.
You can go online and see, the emergency pneumothorax, where you put the big ass hole in your chest into your lungs under your second rib.
Yeah.
If go online, you can Google. There are Marines that were doing like combat lifesaver courses that did that in real life. It's basically like sticking a pin into your lungs through your chest under your second rib, and they did it for shits and giggles. So drinking wine out of a nasty fountain, not to mention the food that you eat in the military.
Oh yeah. Well, people don't know that. You usually talk about the flooding, the rivers going up and down. It actually floods right out in Cathedral San Marco.
Yeah.
Right out in front of the church, and they would have to lay wooden planks out for you to walk into the church.
Oh, which was amazing. That was definitely a sight to see.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
When they actually still have service there.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part. I remember I went up top, looked out the windows out there and everything, and it's just beautiful. I loved it there. But I always tell people that wanted to go there, like my friends would come down from Germany that I knew, because Army's small.
Yeah.
You're going to know people all over the place, especially active Army.
Yeah.
My friends would come down to Germany. It's like, oh, I'm going to Venice. Well, what should I do? I'm like, hey, get off the beaten path. Like, get out of the tourist areas. Walk about 2-3 blocks to the left and find your restaurants there. The prices.
That's anywhere. I'm a big New Orleans Saints fan. On the last podcast, I wore my Saints hat. I know we lost. Taysom Hill was out last week, but I really think the Saints are going to go all the way this year. But I try to go to New Orleans every year. Actually, one of your solo trips you were talking about last year, I went to New Orleans for my birthday about the same time of year as now, and everybody goes to Bourbon Street, but Bourbon Street is not the place. Fremont is where all the locals go to, and there's Tulane. Bourbon Street's cool and everything, but that's not where the locals go. Anywhere you travel, you want to go where the locals
100%.
go. So speaking of New Orleans, my first trip ever to New Orleans was with Christy. We were trying to do like 3 vacations in one.
Okay.
Where we wanted to go to see New Orleans. We also went on a cruise, and we wanted to see a Saints game. So it was my first time to ever see a Saints game in the Saints Stadium, the Superdome, and first time to ever be in New Orleans.
Was this post hurricane or pre-hurricane?
No, post hurricane. I can't remember. Probably 2011, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, Chrissy and I went to New Orleans, and we had a great time. Watched the game. I think we played the Texans. It was really funny. Actually, if anybody has a chance to see a game in New Orleans, obviously the Super Bowl this year is in New Orleans, and they just did a huge, I think like a $3 or $4 billion renovation of the Superdome, and the Superdome is the first ever dome in the NFL. I don't know if anybody knows that. And my National Guard unit actually stayed in the Superdome during Hurricane Katrina. We mobed up to go support Hurricane Katrina relief, and I've just gone back to college, and we got our trucks ready. We got a bunch of water and stuff. Ozarka, shout out to Ozarka Water for donating. And they told us last minute, if you're in school or whatever, and you want to stay in school and not go, then you can. So I chose to stay in school and finish, and all my buddies went down to New Orleans and stayed in the Superdome. But anyway, so that was my first time ever to go to New Orleans, and it was fantastic. Had a great time. But I wanted to kind of circle back to Christy and like relationships and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And me growing up, was always told you want to marry your best friend. You know
Yeah, completely understandable because you want to be on that level with each other.
exactly. And she and I were best friends. We both met in the National Guard. We were in the National Guard together, and for 6 years we were like best buddies. I literally would go to her apartment and sleep overnight with her. Like she would sleep on my chest, and we never did anything. We were just buddies. I mean, I literally had sex with a girl in her bathroom one time.
Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. We can go deep dive into that because there's a lot of stuff to do with that. But she's an amazing person, and I love her to pieces. But eventually, what happened? We got married right before my second tour in Iraq. We both went to Iraq together, and I can talk more about that later. But we went to Iraq, came home, and there's other things that happened, but the long story short is she was my best friend, but the romantic and intimate connection wasn't there. And we eventually just became roommates,
Yeah.
We loved like UFC and stuff, which by the way, someone who I've kind of tailored my life is Joe Rogan.
Okay. Yeah. Very
Uh,
powerful character there.
yeah, love Joe Rogan, love Dana White. Shout out to them. Joe obviously has the biggest podcast in the world. Austin's what, 4 hours, 4.5 hours away from here?
Yeah. No, if even that.
Hop, skip, and a jump. Man, I would do anything to meet Joe. He's so cool, and he's a martial artist like myself. But anyway, we came home from Iraq 2008, and I found myself just being roommates with her. We drink beer, watch UFC, and watch football. Which tonight was the Cowboys Giants game.
Yeah.
And Chrissy and I actually went to the Cowboys Giants game at the old stadium.
Okay. Yeah.
And sat in the Giants section. I even wore like some Giants gear for her and
Oh my
stuff. Well, I'm a Saints fan. She went to the Saints game with me, and I went to the Cowboys Giants game. Anyway, I found out you don't want your partner to be your best friend, in my opinion, because that's not what a relationship is about. As guys, we tell dick and fart jokes.
Yeah.
We do stupid shit. We stick our finger in our butt and try to
Well,
make
maybe
each other
you
smell
do.
it. or we break your arm when you're a kid and you stick your finger in it and you smell it and it stinks, and you get your buddies to do it and they do it. And we constantly, when most of the time when dudes hang out together, we talk about girls and sex and pussy
And cars. And
yeah. And that's not what you want to do with your girl. You want to do girlfriend, boyfriend things. And actually, Christy enlightened me because I maintained some sort of friendship or connection with all of my ex-girlfriends. And she told me men and women can't be friends. Somebody wants to date or fuck in that situation. The dude is either buying his time until she breaks up with her boyfriend or she's in a vulnerable position so that he can swoop in and fuck or start dating her. And man, there's so many movies about it. And she was,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I've heard that saying a lot.
Yeah.
That guys and girls can't coexist as just friends, and I like to say it's complete bullshit. because
Well,
I understand where they're coming from because natural selection and stuff like that. But I believe they can coexist. Like I have female friends that we're just friends. Now nothing will ever go beyond being friends. We have that understanding.
yeah.
But
Well, I kind of took a step back and thought about what she said, and I personally felt like she was right. And at that point in my life, if I want to hang out and do fun stuff, I don't want to do it with a chick.
yeah,
I want to do it with my boys. Like I want to go play golf with my boys. I want to go to the bar and drink beers and scream at the TV with my boys. I'm not going to act the same way with my girl as I act with my boys.
yeah,
And what I realized was I literally want to fuck pretty much any girl. If you're attractive, I'm going to try to fuck. And I'm not trying to go to the mall and shoe shop or whatever, you know.
yeah.
But when I do have a girl, I want to do girlfriend boyfriend things, you know.
Go to the movies, go to
Yeah,
dinner.
you know, I'm Mr. fucking silverback gorilla or whatever. But I love to cuddle up and watch a movie with a girl,
Yeah.
you know. I love that feeling. I love to cook dinner for her and just have that, you know, girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever time. But it's completely different from what I do with my friends and my boys. You know, I'm not telling dick and fart jokes with my girl. You know, we might discuss something deeper, you know, whether it's the state of the country or
Hmm.
politics or religion or something like that. We can deep dive into stuff like that. But I'm not doing the silly shit that, you know, we do as men together. And I found that she was right. But getting back to it, I learned that we were best friends,
Yeah.
but I didn't want my best friend for my mate. I
Yeah.
didn't, and that realization was when I decided to step back. And some people have argued with me, and I've had this conversation with several girls and stuff, and I think she was 100% correct. You disagree, and that's great. It's great to have different perspectives,
But
but
like, I'm saying I have friends right now. Like, I know there is no romantic or sexual interest there. But to retract that statement, I've had it happen to me. Like, I had a female best friend. She died years ago. God rest her soul. She was a Saints fan.
who
Like,
dat?
we would watch football together. We would hang out, drink beer. And she would talk like one of the guys and all that good stuff. But one night she got really drunk and she came on to me, tried kissing me, and her husband was on his way. And that's when I was like, hey, I can't. So that's kind of validating the statement too. But I can't predict what's going on in my female friends' heads right now. I like to believe that there's no interest there, that really we're just tight like that. But we don't watch football or anything like that together. They do their girly stuff. I do my guys. But a lot of females, especially being military, have a lot more guy friends than female friends. So
Yeah. And that was the other thing I was going to say is I have had some girls that were part of our group that did tell dick and fart jokes, and they were one of the guys or whatever.
yeah.
And for me, I don't know if it's misogynistic or whatever, because I'll tell you, I love women. I love women. They're beautiful
Hmm.
people, and I just love the femininity and whatnot. But I don't want a girl telling dick and fart jokes. I don't want a girl farting in front of me. You know, a lot of couples, they will, you know, shit with the door open and whatnot. I'm like, yo, that's my favorite restaurant. I know it gets dirty, but I don't need to witness it, you know? I don't want to witness my favorite restaurant and its uncleanness, you know? And so I don't want to fart in front of each other. I don't want to shit in front of each other. I don't want you to piss with the door open and talk to me. I want to separate that. And I don't want to be with a girl that acts like a dude. I want to be with my dudes when I want to do dude shit. And when I want to do girlfriend boyfriend shit, I want to do girlfriend boyfriend shit. And I'm not going to do girlfriend boyfriend shit with my dudes.
So you want somebody that's classy in the streets, but a freak
Freak in
with
the
the sheets.
Absolutely.
So I know that we both like to go and do some guy stuff, but here's one thing that I've always wondered, because I know I would love it, but would you want your significant other to go golfing with you, or is that a strictly guy thing?
I feel like you can still make it an intimate time together, you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah.
But, you know, we're not going to be out there shotgunning a beer every hole.
Oh no.
You know, we're going to be out there and be lovey-dovey and shit versus the guys where we're fucking running into each other with the carts and stuff. Like, you know, one of my military buddies was getting married, and his bachelor party, we literally went to the golf course and played golf. I got some pictures from that. And I think we had beer and we had Fireball.
Oh my God.
And
Fireball.
we took a shot of Fireball at every hole, 18 holes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we had like a case of beer. There was like 4 of us and we had a case or 2 cases of beer.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we're just doing dumb shit. And I'm not going to do that with my girl, you know. I have had sex on the golf course a couple of times.
Oh, you got me there.
Sprinklers came on one time. That's a whole other story too. But yeah, I just want to do girlfriend, boyfriend shit with my girl, and I want to do dude shit with my dudes. And I don't want those to cross over. Now, can we all go to dinner or go to a function or something? Yeah. And most likely, I'm going to be more girlfriend boyfriend in front of my girl. I'm not going to be the just disgusting individual that I am with my boys. It's not that I'm hiding that. I'm very transparent, and girls know.
Oh yeah.
I'm an animal. But
yeah, I know your personality. I know that, you know, hey, if you're good looking, that come to Papa.
yeah. So I think we've covered a lot of stuff. We've circled back around. You got anything else you want to throw in there?
No, but I do want to say that we do have all these crazy stories and everything, and you know, it's not only from us challenging each other to prove it, but anybody listening, they should feel free to challenge us on our stories to prove it, and we can prove it in our next episode or whatever. I think that'd be a great feedback from our audience and everything too.
Absolutely. If there's anything that we've said that you feel like you don't believe or is outlandish and you want us to prove it, then put it in the comments and we'll put it in the next episode and we will prove it. And we're going to throw up some pictures, videos, or whatever from the last episode and this episode that will prove some of our stories.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time on Prove It.
Word.